Hey, gang. Hello, hello. There we go. There we go. We're going to do it live. Apologies for my stumbles on YouTube. I'm trying to make this transition from Facebook Live over to YouTube Live because we've really built out my YouTube channel. I've got great assistance from I was going to say from a college senior, but he graduated on Thursday. So, Jarek, congratulations. We have some really cool offerings on my YouTube page. As TC likes to say, you can actually watch radio because there's a segment per day, usually from the radio program, that I'm posting on this YouTube channel so that you can actually watch the sausage get made. And people really seem to be responding to it so far. And I'm actually seeing your comments, which is also cool. James McDermott is there. Marianne Finnegan is there. Pete Froelich, I think, Connie Fletcher, Jane O'Neill, Sean Nichols, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, Sean, there will be commercials. Baby needs new shoes, okay? I know why you're tuned in today. I know why you're here now and why some of you will watch this later. You want to see if I am going to wilt because I was in this chair. I was right in this chair 10 and a half hours ago. That doesn't sound so impressive. How about if I explain it this way? I guest hosted Chris Cuomo's show last night, and it means that I was in this very studio until 10 p.m. Okay, I leave the studio, I go home, I get home, it's now 11:15, but I am totally wired from having hosted that broadcast. There's no way I can get to sleep. So by the time I actually get in bed, it's probably 12:15. I need my normal wake up time of 4:30 on a Saturday in order to get my act together, be read in, make sure that I'm familiar with the scripts and so forth. And voila, here I am. So I am truly running on fumes, but I feel pretty good. And the news gods are smiling on me because I have really good content with which to work. I'm really excited about what's coming up. The big story, and I discussed this on radio yesterday. I discussed it last night when I was in Chris's stead. In fact, I had former Clinton Labor Secretary Robert Reich on the program. The big story is this. You can see the headline. Is that reversed? I'm not sure. Tepid job growth inflames a debate over U.S. benefits. And the survey question today at smerconish.com asks whether these so-called enhanced unemployment benefits need now to be reduced. I can tell you who disagrees with the idea that we've created too much of an incentive for people to stay home, and that's the President of the United States. Joe Biden said yesterday that he doesn't think there's any measurable impact that the enhanced unemployment benefits are having. I can tell you who believe to their core that the enhanced unemployment benefits are having a negative impact on the labor force. Small business people, especially restaurateurs and others who are in the service, employ folks in the service industry. There was a caller to my program yesterday on POTUS. I've met him before because I've eaten at his restaurant. His name is Caleb, and he's in my backyard. And he told the story of soft shell crabs. Soft shell crab story season. See that? I might wilt. Soft shell crab season has just begun. So Thursday night at his restaurant with reduced seating, he sold out. People want the soft shell crabs. He could have done, he thinks, an enormous business in takeout. He had enough crabs. What he didn't have were enough people. His labor force is so diminished. He said that he has in his phone 30 to 40 people, because he's been in the restaurant business for a long time, who work in a service capacity. None of them are willing to go back to work because he maintains they're doing better financially by staying at home. So, initially it was a $600 bump on top of unemployment. That was in the waning days of the Trump administration, and Republicans were for it. It has since been reduced to $300. The average unemployment weekly check, I think, is $318. So people are getting $618 per week, and there have been stimulus checks, 3 of them all told. So with the best of intentions, has the government now created this situation? The critics of that say, wait a minute, that's an oversimplification. And a large part of the problem here is that kids are not back in school. And if the kids aren't back in school, then the parents are unable to leave their home because they don't have any childcare. Well, that then leads to a conversation as to whether the teachers' unions have created an untenable situation where the schools aren't open and therefore people can't go back to work. So it goes round and round and round, but it's a really good dialogue. That is the survey question. Should enhanced unemployment benefits be reduced to incentivize people to return to work? So I'll lead with that. The author of this front page above the fold story in yesterday's Wall Street Journal, Eric Morath, will be my guest. Can I just tip my hand in terms of some of the things that I'll be discussing on CNN on this issue? At a McDonald's in Butler County, Pennsylvania, they're offering a $500 bonus if you get hired. I worked at McDonald's back in the day. $500 would probably have been 2+ weeks of salary for me. A McDonald's in Florida is offering people $50 just to show up for an interview. A Sonic in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and a Chicken Express in Texas sported signs on their drive-through windows warning customers to be patient with them, given, quote, no one wants to work anymore. So that's the background on that issue. Some other interesting things that I'm going to get into today. Let me just get myself organized. So this is a Supreme Court opinion, a state Supreme Court opinion from 1993 in the state of New Jersey, State v. Bridges. And it involves a conspiracy to commit murder case. It's a criminal law case. The fact pattern is that a guy's at a party. There's some type, this is a gross simplification, I warn you, but there's some kind of static at the party. And this guy's pissed off, so he leaves the party. But before he leaves, he says, I'm going to go and return with my N-word plural. Okay? By the way, he does return. He comes back with some friends. They have guns. Somebody's shot and killed. Somebody else is shot and wounded. That's really all you need to know about the predicate facts of State v. Bridges. Well, in writing up the opinion, I'm not going to say the word, but the Supreme Court of New Jersey publishes what transpired. And they quote him. They quote him literally, and I think in part because that's what he said, but in part because they probably believe that saying the word added meaning to the fact pattern. You know, he didn't say, I'm going to return with my nieces and nephews. He said, I'm going to return with my blank. And he did. Okay, fast forward now to recent times at the Rutgers University School of Law, 2 campuses. One of them's in Camden and one of them's in Newark, I believe. There's a law school class online via Zoom. Class ends. The professor then has office hours or whatever they might call it. 3 students hang out with the professor. And what I showed you from the literal opinion, I don't know if you were able to watch it, was missing from the summarized version that was in the law book. So a first-year law student who, interestingly, I don't know that it's significant, but just interesting. Apparently, it's a middle-aged woman, not some 20-something who's looking at a second career. And she takes it upon herself, I think to her credit, to go and read the full opinion, like the one that I'm holding. And in it, she sees the use of the word. So in a conversation now with the professor and with the other students, she says the word in this academic setting. So State University, a state legal opinion gets quoted. And now, as you can imagine, there's enormous blowback against her, against the professor for not saying something. The professor maintains that she missed it. But it presents a really interesting issue because there are 10,000 plus legal opinions available via Westlaw, which is an electronic database where there are slurs that have been reported. So what are we now to do? Should they be sanitized in an academic setting? Should courts sanitize that kind of speech? Does it set a dangerous precedent? I have two professors from the Rutgers School of Law who will join me to talk about that. Two other things, if I can quickly mention them. One is that there is a very important district attorney's race in the city of Philadelphia that is about 10 days away. Larry Krasner is the incumbent. He's a very, quote, progressive district attorney, and he's running against a guy named Carlos Vega, who's a former prosecutor whom Krasner fired, along with others, when he first came into office. There's a PBS special that I recommend. It's called Philly DA, several parts. I don't think you can watch it if you're in the city proper, and for good reason. It's incredibly biased in favor of Larry Krasner, the progressive DA. Krasner is one of a handful of progressives who've been elected district attorneys across the country in large cities, many backing of George Soros. And I don't invoke Soros the way Fox News invokes Soros, like, oh, Soros, he has his hands on everything. But it's a fact. Soros has supported Krasner and others who are very progressive. And something interesting has taken place in the country where it used to be, and I'm going to document this on CNN today with a great example. It used to be that you would run for district attorney and you would out-thump your chest in comparison to your opponent. You would say, I'm going to throw them away, or no, I'm going to lock them up and throw away the key. That's what you would say. I'm for the death penalty. We can't be soft on crime. Now you've got these progressive DAs who've been elected. And how that's playing out is a matter of interpretation, because many victim rights advocates and many police say that they've gone absolutely soft. And it's unhealthy now for society. So a race in which relatively few people, I don't know how many will vote in Philly, maybe 150,000, are going to determine the outcome, is really going to set the stage for this trend toward electing so-called progressive district attorneys. So I must discuss that. I have the perfect person to do it. It is Charles Ramsey. And then the final thing that if I'm just giving you a little show preview here and talk about the news of the day, you've heard a lot about the Supreme Court, the Facebook Oversight Board opinion. Well, how about if I say it this way? The Facebook Supreme Court opinion about President Trump, former President Trump. Here it is. I've read it. It's really of interest. I just don't see how Facebook is going to be able to police their platform. They can police Donald Trump because they can simply assign somebody to keep tabs on what he's up to when he's on their platform. But with 3 billion users around the globe, there's no way they can police. They don't have enough personnel. They couldn't hire enough personnel, and no algorithm is going to stay ahead of the curve. So I think that this situation is fraught with peril because it'll create a lot of whataboutism. Trump got taken down. Trump got banned. But what about this? Or what about that? Or what about the next thing? I don't have a solution. I just don't think it's currently a solvable problem. And I also find interesting that the Facebook Oversight Board not only was critical of Trump, but was also critical of Facebook, because they said, you suspended him indefinitely. Where in the rules that you've written up does it say that you can do that? So that's what's on my mind. That, a good nap, and Mother's Day. That is what is on my mind. All right, let me see. Sean, who would have thought the left would become the thought police? Jim, you are having some small audio problems. Feedback, perhaps. Sorry about that. Michelle, body language says it all. William, Facebook is a private company. They can do whatever they want. Yeah, I mean, that's true. Well, he then says, too many. I don't know, William, if I'm going to get sanitized if I read the rest of your quote. I'm happy to read it out loud. But he says that too many a-holes don't know jack about how anything works, flapping their yaps about freedom of speech. I am not flapping my yap. I hope I'm not an a-hole. You can be the judge of that. But I completely understand. It's not a First Amendment issue. You don't hear me say that. Oh, First Amendment. No, they're a private. Only government brings into play First Amendment issues. But it's nevertheless a very important speech issue. I mean, look at it this way. You have the fifth largest company on the planet taking down, censoring a democratically elected president of the United States. That's a big effing deal, to quote Joe Biden. Oh, I don't worry about your bad words. Don't worry about that. Danny, how will the race for New York mayor be impacted by the dynamic you described? You mean, I take it you mean the progressive police issue? I don't know that it's become at the forefront of the New York City race. It's a big deal in Philadelphia, and it's also a big deal in San Francisco right now. And I think it will be a big deal in other areas as well. Ash Fish, the Friday show was great. Loved the Philly lawyers. Oh my God, thank you for saying that. So if you missed it, and it's available on the SiriusXM app, as is, by the way, TC's podcast, TC After Dark. But yes, two of the Trump impeachment lawyers, Michael Vanderveen and William Brennan, were in my studio yesterday. We didn't really talk about the substance, and we certainly didn't talk about the relationship that they had with Donald Trump, because that would be improper for me to ask or for them to answer. Instead, the conversation, and it was an hour long. TC, will you put in a link somewhere here so that people can go find it easily? The conversation was, I just thought, hysterical and intriguing, because it was all about, two guys who are real Philly lawyers. They're in courtrooms. They're in City Hall, a couple of blocks from where I am now. They're in the federal courthouse. They try cases. They defend in criminal cases. They represent plaintiffs doing trial work. And through almost happenstance, they find themselves in the well of the Senate representing the president of the United States in an impeachment case, or a former president. And just the stories about, well, how were they treated as guests at Trump's hotel? Or how do you find the men's room in the Senate? Or, how about when Attorney Vanderveen, I can't believe this, told us the story about how he would play a stare down game with members of the Senate. The other side is arguing, and he's sitting there trying to hold the gaze of Bernie Sanders or Cory Booker. It was unbelievable. So thank you for saying that. Marie, please broaden the language topic to include how to teach books that include words. Well, that's an excellent point. I mean, Huckleberry Finn is, I guess, the classic example, right? Yes. Gang, it'll be hard for me to keep up with all these comments, but I assure you I'll go back and I'll take a look at them later in the day, okay? I have got to go. You know what? I'll do it right here. I will do it right here while I'm... Mary, these lawyers, they were awful. Staring contests. Really? What are they, 5? Hey, man, I'm there to get them to tell their stories. You can be the judge. I just thought it was really great stuff. So this is like a Mac anti-shine. Now you're really seeing how the sausage is made. This stuff is hard to get, and it's expensive. I think I got it at Amazon. Mate creme, or some such thing. And then I go, see, you thought this was like a really glamorous existence, hosting a program worldwide on CNN. I drove myself here this morning, and I stopped at Wawa along the way. All right, one more thing. Then we're done. Michelle, you like seeing how the Eric says your head still shines. I know. I don't want to put on too much. And then after I do this, I go right into a rehearsal, because I've got all those scripts in my head from last night's Cuomo show. And then I want one swipe. What do you think? It'll have to do. Yes, the very glamorous life of being a cable personality. Clifton, has your head just gotten bigger? Very funny. All right, I seriously have to get to work now. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Will you tell a friend about the YouTube channel? We've got great content here. We really do. Look at some of the videos from just this past week's radio show, and I think you'll get a real kick out of it. I'll see you soon, I hope, on CNN. Happy Mother's Day. Hope you have a great Mother's Day. See ya.